Hello and welcome to another episode of Soap Goes to the Oscars. This is episode 78. I'm recording on March 16th, 2025. I watched this movie yesterday on the 15th, and the movie was called In Old Chicago. In Old Chicago is a 1938 American disaster musical drama film directed by Henry King. And that's interesting because these are the 1937 Oscars, which would have been awarded in 1938. But according to Wikipedia, this says it was released January 6, 1938. And IMDb listed as 1938, but it was included in the 1937 Oscars. So I'm guessing maybe it had, like nowadays, a movie just has to be released for a couple of weeks in a few major markets to be eligible for the Oscars. So, back in the day, like movies like Good Will Hunting was nominated in the 1997 Oscars, like along with Titanic, but didn't really come out until 1998. But it was released in a few theaters before, the year before. So it counts. Not sure if that's what happened here, but it does have a date of 1938, which is weird. Screenplay by Sonia Levian and Lamar Trotty was based on the Niven Bush story, the O'Learys. The film is a fictionalized account of the Great Chicago Fire of 1871 and stars Alice Brady as Mrs. O'Leary, the owner of the cow which started the fire, and Tyrone Power and Don Amici as her sons. It also stars Alice Faye and Andy Devine. At the time of its release, it was one of the most expensive movies ever made. Andy Devine has been in a couple of the other movies from this year as well. As I said, directed by Henry King, produced by Daryl F. Zanuck and Kenneth McGowan. Daryl F. Zanuck is the father of Richard Zanuck, who was, when I saw the name, I had to look it up because Richard Zanuck is a name that I know. So he was producer on things like The Sting, Sugarland Express, Spielberg's first theatrical movie, Jaws 2, Cocoon, The Return, Driving Miss Daisy, Mulholland Falls, Planet of the Apes, the 2001 version. So lots of big movies. Kind of funny that he produced Cocoon with Don Amici because this also starred a much younger and unrecognizable Don Amici. His face changed a lot as he got older. It got a lot thinner. Let's see. Cinematography, J. Peveril Marley, edited by Barbara McLean. Music by Sidney Clare and Lou Pollock. Production company, Daryl F. Zanuck Productions. Distributed by 20th Century Fox. Release date, January 6th, 1938. Runtime. So there's a theatrical cut of 96 minutes, and there's a roadshow version of 111 minutes. I was going to watch the shorter version. That was my plan because, I like the shorter movies. But when I went on YouTube, which is where it was available, they had both versions, and the shorter version was not good quality. So I decided to watch the longer version, which means it took 2 nights to watch because I started a bit late Friday night and only got through about 50 minutes. I guess I got through about an hour. So I had about 50 minutes left last night. Nominated for Best Picture, Alice Brady won the Oscar for Best Actress in a Supporting Role. She was the first person to win the supporting Oscar after being nominated in the year prior. The film was also nominated in the categories of music, scoring, sound recording, and writing, and also won for Assistant Director. Historical accuracy, despite crediting the Chicago Historical Society for assistance with historical research, much of the film is fictionalized. The area known as the Patch did exist as a predominantly Irish neighborhood and was associated with crime as portrayed in the film. In the years before the film was made, it had been supplanted by the Levee, an area renowned for its corrupt politicians known as the Grey Wolves, whose deeds resemble those of the characters in the film. The portrayal of the O'Leary family is largely fictitious down to the names of the characters. Mrs. O'Leary's name was Catherine, not Molly. The O'Learys had 2 children, 1 son and 1 daughter. In the movie, there are 3 sons. Her only son was named James Patrick O'Leary. The daughter was named Anna. Their father, Patrick O'Leary, did not die in 1854 as a result of an accident involving his horses. He died in 1894. Mrs. O'Leary did not run her own French laundry out of their house. And the mayor of Chicago in 1871 was Roswell B. Mason, not an O'Leary son. However, Mason was elected on a reform ticket like the fictional Jack and took similar measures to deal with the fire. Mrs. O'Leary's son, James Patrick, did achieve success as a gambler and saloon owner comparable to that of Diane in the film. Trivia. Scotty Matra and Eddie Collins both worked as voice actors in Walt Disney's first animated feature, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, the previous year, with Matra voicing Bashful and Collins voicing Dopey. And spoilers, that is the snubbed movie for this round of Oscars. Okay, so there's been a couple of movies now, and I can't remember, was it part of the last one? Yeah, the last round of Oscars. There's a movie called San Francisco with Clark Gable. And, as this said in the description, it's a disaster movie, and San Francisco was the same way. It's about the San Francisco earthquake of 1906 or whatever it was. But both of these movies, the disaster part of it is very much at the end, and it's a very quick part of it. And then the movie just ends, whereas something like Deep Impact or whatever the other asteroid movie was, the asteroid thing, whatever it is, the build up to it kind of happens maybe second act, whereas these things sort of happen right at the end. So it was surprising that this was all of a sudden a disaster movie. And as soon as they showed the cow kicking over the lantern, I was like, oh, it's like how the fire started, the Great Chicago Fire. And then I was like, oh, wait a minute. Wasn't it Miss O'Leary's cow? The whole time knowing that in the movie, their names were O'Leary, but not putting that together until the moment happened. And, I just wasn't thinking of it. I don't typically read any descriptions of these before I watch them. So I don't necessarily, hear any spoilers like that. So it was a surprise. All of a sudden I was like, oh yeah, okay. It was Mrs. O'Leary's cow is what the fable is, that how the fire started. So that was a fun surprise. But then, things kind of happened very quickly after that. And it sort of rushes to an ending. And a lot of these movies do, they just sort of end. But this was good. I like this one. I gave it 3.5 stars on Letterboxd. And I can't remember the rest of them. I know A Star Is Born has been my favorite throughout this. And I can't remember the last one I watched that I think I also liked a little bit, maybe. But this one was probably, I'd put it second. And, I'd hoped to get through these a little quicker because they were all available for free, but life has impeded with that. So, and mainly because like when I get through them quicker, then I can remember them better, like comparison wise. It's taken a little longer than expected. When did I start this? First one I watched February 21st. Now we're in March 15th. So it's been almost a month. That sucks. But one good thing is I still have only had to pay for one of these. So out of the 8 movies I've watched so far, my average cost is only 50 cents a movie, like that. So I do have one more before the Best Picture winner this year. And unfortunately, that one is a long one. It's 2 hours and 18 minutes. The winner is only 1 hour and 56. So they're both a little longer, but hopefully I can get through those a little quicker. And then we can move on to the actual 1938 movies, not like this Imposter in Old Chicago. But anyway, liked it. Oh, the other thing I was going to say was, can't remember which movie it was now, but one of the movies had Ralph Bellamy in it this round, and then this one had Don Amici. So it's the 2 guys from Trading Places that make the bet that affects Eddie Murphy and Dan Aykroyd. I thought that was kind of funny that they were both in movies this year. I mean, they're probably both in movies a lot of years, but this is the first I've run into either of them. So good times. Anyway, that's it. See you next time.